Hey everyone, what's up? Welcome to another episode of Kurt on Cougs. Tonight we're doing part 3 of Road to the Postseason, and so we're kind of just gonna jump right into this. I feel like yesterday kind of covered a lot of what's coming up this week in other BYU sports. And one quick note, the one thing I found very interesting, number 2 UConn struggling at the Maui Invitational, losing to first Memphis in the first round, and then in the consolation bracket, they lose against Colorado earlier tonight. Both those close losses, but very surprising to see the defending champs lose back-to-back there. And playing in the 7th place game, just totally didn't see that coming. So it's basketball season. It's a lot of fun. But right now, probably biggest news going on in college sports world is college football. And earlier tonight, the rankings came out, playoff rankings, and BYU comes in at number 19, which honestly I feel is pretty decently fair at this point. You've lost back-to-back games, so I think it's decently fair at this point. Teams above BYU currently, you got Arizona State. Makes sense. They just beat the Cougars. Tulane, that's an AAC team. And then Iowa State, so another Big 12 team. And then teams behind BYU, you got Texas A&M, UNLV, and Illinois. And so just looking at that overall, I feel like this is pretty fair. And I think that this is where BYU belongs at this point. Still shows they have a good shot if they were to win their next game and then win the conference title game to make it into the playoffs, potentially still as a first-round bye. So we'd have to see, but could be pretty interesting there. And so, So, of course, looking at towards the Big 12 title game, does BYU make it? Of course, they need some help. They got to beat Houston on Saturday. Personally, for me, that's a game I'm pretty optimistic about. I feel like BYU, for one thing, this is a home game. I know I was saying the same thing before the Kansas game, but I feel like this time BYU, especially after 2 losses, they're going to come out focused. Houston's just not a very good team. They average less than 14 points a game, or maybe that's just in conference play. I think I saw a stat, something like that. And so so I think that the Blue Cougars win that one pretty handily, pretty well. I believe currently BYU is favored by about 13, so I'm not really worried about that one. But games to focus on, of course, are probably Iowa State versus Kansas State and Arizona versus Arizona State. And if either Arizona or Kansas State wins, BYU goes to the Big 12 title game. And I think I saw somewhere that the chances of at least one of those happening is something like 61% or something. So it's most likely going to happen. So if BYU wins, most likely, according to the numbers that people will have put out there, they will be in the Big 12 title game. So very exciting, very awesome. This is Thanksgiving week, so I would say I'm very thankful for this. Honestly, just this whole season, very grateful for it. I know the last 2 weeks have been tough, but if you look at it overall, just super impressive. Currently 2 ranked wins. Of course, you got to win over now a top 10 SMU team. Kansas State also got back into the rankings, so at number 24. So 2 ranked wins there. And your 2 losses honestly aren't that bad. One was against a Kansas team who currently is one of the hottest teams in the Big 12, and BYU, arguably of the 3 teams they beat, put up the best fight against them. Because they won decently well against Iowa State, and they beat Colorado pretty bad last week. And so, solid there. Arizona State is a legit team, and so don't feel too bad about losing to them either. Still, though, so grateful for this year. Just to think BYU is even in this position. We came in, honestly, for me, I was looking at the week with the Houston game going, okay, that could be the week we come into either right after getting bowl eligibility or looking for bowl eligibility. We're here, and we're watching as BYU shoots for double-digit wins on the season, so very exciting to see. Now, of course, as has been noted, based on what happens on Saturday, if BYU makes the conference title game, there are various teams they could play. I'm mostly just going to focus on the three most likely possibilities, which would be Arizona State, which would happen if Iowa State loses to Kansas State, and Arizona State wins, of course, and then Iowa State flips scenario, and then if both those teams lose, Colorado most likely wins against Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State really struggling this year, and so then the Cougars can blame the Buffaloes. So you got those three teams, and all three I would say would be fun matchups, but here's my rankings of which ones I think would be the very best. So at number 3, I'm going to put Colorado. This is the matchup I probably want the least. And my reasoning behind this is, like, honestly, I think this would be a really fun matchup. But at the end of the day, don't think it quite necessarily beats out, especially the Arizona State game. I'll get to that later. But as well, I believe that's a game that BYU, has a higher... Like, honestly, Colorado, to me, is the team that scares me the most when it comes to teams BYU could play in the conference title game if they make it there. And that's just because Colorado has some legitimate game changers out there. They got Shadir Sanders and Travis Hunter. And you know what? No matter what you think about those players, how they should be ranked, should Travis Hunter really be the forerunner for the Heisman Trophy? My personal opinion on that, I believe Ashton Genty of Boise State should be in the lead. The guy's just putting up unreal numbers. I don't care that he's in the Mountain West. I think he should be in the lead at this point. But either way, Travis Hunter, a great player. Shadir Sanders, great players. And yeah, honestly, that just gives me a little concern as a BYU fan thinking about that potential matchup, which honestly I think is probably the least likely of the three opponents should BYU make the conference title game. But yeah, I just think that, when you have those potential game changers in there, it can make a big difference. And so, like, overall, I would say I feel like Colorado has the highest ceiling, like, for a single game of any team in the Big 12. They just got guys that can go out there, change the game, carry their team. That's probably the matchup I like the least. Still, I think it'd be really fun going against Deion Sanders, all of that. The Colorado team has been getting a lot of hype this year, so that'd be a fun matchup. At number 2, Iowa State. I mean, for one thing, I think this would be a fun matchup just because earlier in the year, that's kind of the matchup everyone was pointing at. And so I think that'd be good, a little revenge for a blowout loss last year. And Iowa State, really well-balanced team, but overall they don't have a lot of big stars, and so I feel like this is a game that BYU could win. I don't know, probably, in my opinion, more likely than playing against Colorado, where you have the chance of one of those game changers just going off, having a great performance. And so, yeah, I would love to see a matchup with the Cyclones, but of course, at number 1 for me is Arizona State, for various reasons. For one thing, I feel pretty optimistic about this matchup because, for one thing, BYU's already played this team. They have film of themselves playing against the Sun Devils, and so I believe they'd be able to prepare a much better game plan coming into the next one. There's that motivation, coming off the loss, the emotions behind that. I think the team plays hard because of that, as well as it would be at a neutral site. It's not in Tempe this time, and so, yeah, I feel good about BYU's chances to win this game. But more than anything, what really makes me excited is the potential, revenge aspect of this game. And I think it'd be really fun. And I'm not saying at all I hate Arizona State or anything. I feel like they deserve to lose. No, nothing like that. I just think this is a really fun situation for BYU to potentially win. And I think it's like the perfect setup here. You got, some interesting things that happened at the end of the game with a field rushing at the end that, definitely deserves a little criticism for the way it was handled, as well as Kenny Dillingham making some comments both in-game and just overall that definitely do not endear him to BYU fans. The way that BYU came just short, I think this has the perfect setup to be a really exciting game if these two teams play again, and so I would love to see it. I think it'd be really fun, and so... yeah, I would love that matchup. And, yeah, be great to get a win against the Sun Devils. And so, yeah, but of course it all starts with beating Houston on Saturday. So now before we jump into looking at BYU and their playoff possibilities, if they were to win their next 2 games, which I personally think it's pretty likely they get in at that point, because in that case, you're coming off of most likely a win against a top 15 team. In my opinion, either Iowa State or, Iowa State would be coming off a win over number 24 Kansas State, so I think they jump into the top 15 if that's the team BYU ends up playing, if they make it, of course. And then Arizona State already, 1 spot out. I think they move up. They're in the top 15 when BYU plays them. So I see BYU beating out at least one of Boise State or UNLV if UNLV beat the Broncos, of course. And then Tulane, who is a team just 2 spots ahead of BYU right now. So, yeah, I feel pretty confident in BYU's chances to make the playoffs in either scenario. I feel like they have the strength of schedule to compete either one of these G5 teams they could go against. And so, yeah. So overall, I'm feeling pretty positive about BYU's chances to make the playoffs if they win these next 2 games. Of course, definitely wouldn't be easy to do, but fun possibilities. And then, of course, looking at, of course, we know there is a good chance BYU does not go to the playoffs. Earlier on, it seemed like something you could have a little more confidence in. Now, a little shaky potentially, but still some great possibilities for BYU out there. And I got this information off of an article from Vanquish the Foe, so really good stuff. One possibility, probably the one I've heard the most about, I've seen in the most projections, is the Alamo Bowl. That's the bowl that has the first pick of Big 12 teams after the playoff selection. And so, yeah, Alamo Bowl could be a lot of fun. That would be against a former Pac-12 team, former or current Pac-12 team, basically just anyone that was in the Pac-12 as of last year, I believe. And so, yeah, a couple matchups that have been thrown out are BYU versus Washington State. I think that one would be fun. Hopefully top 25 matchup there. Or against Colorado, which, still, I think, really fun matchup. But I would be a little disappointed just, playing another conference opponent at the end of the year instead of getting to play someone you don't play as often. Wouldn't be quite as exciting, but either way, still good matchups. Fun way to end the season. Another bowl that's been tossed around a little bit is the Pop-Tart Bowl. People saying BYU could play against Clemson there. Personally, for one thing, I just think the idea of a Pop-Tart Bowl is super funny, and so I would love to see BYU in that game. Of course, I would prefer to see them in the playoffs, but I think that'd be a fun game. Playing against an ACC opponent like Clemson, I think that'd be cool. And then the third bowl that's been mentioned, don't think a lot of people are projecting BYU to go there, but would be the Texas Bowl. So any of those possibilities still really good, probably better than the average bowl BYU gets in Independence. So really exciting. And so yeah, great possibilities for BYU towards the end of the season. Of course, it all starts with Houston. In my opinion, they beat Houston, they go to the Big 12 title game. In my opinion, the most likely scenario, if I'm having to make my picks, I think Arizona State beats Arizona. I could see that one being close, but I think that the Sun Devils have a lot of momentum right now. Personally, I feel like Kansas State, they've refound their groove. Iowa State, been stumbling a little recently, only won by 3 against Utah. Now, of course, playing in a hostile environment there. But I think that the Wildcats win that one. I think BYU beats Houston, so I think we're going to see a rematch of BYU-ASU. I'd be really excited about that. And yeah, from there, potentially a shot at the playoffs. And so, yeah, really good stuff for the Cougs. And yeah, a lot of it's going to come down to what happens on Saturday. And I'll be back for more analysis on that, later this week. As well, I just wanted to, leave a little plug in for a place where I'm going to try to put out more sports content. And that's on my Twitter account. I'll leave the link to my profile in the description. And basically, the reason I'm telling you all about this is just because, I'm a busy college student. I might not always be able to make videos. I'm going to try to keep up with these. But even if I'm not making videos, I should have enough time to make a quick Twitter Twitter post, X post here or there. And so, yeah, I will leave that link if you want to follow me, keep up with my takes, opinions, yeah, just all that, then go ahead. But yeah, I hope you all have a great week. Hope you have a great Thanksgiving. BYU plays Ole Miss on Thanksgiving, so that'll be a fun game. And yeah, let's go Cougs.